Little
Steve, did Steve just take a phone call?
Are we waiting?
Am I signing under job foreman?
Hi, I'm Chuck Ryder. We're here today. We're going to talk about your Lutron control system for your bus block heaters. One thing to get right at the beginning, I'm going to give you a tech number for Lutron. It is 800-523-9466. That's 800-523-9466. That number works 24/7. You'll actually get a human based out of Eastern Pennsylvania. Feel free to call that with any questions that you have. If you get down the road and you want to go, give me a little more help on how to program this thing, stand here with a cell phone, call that number, and they'll walk you through the push buttons. So this is the main panel, panel number one. There are 3 panels total. They are networked together and work as a single system. So you will do your programming for the time clocks all from this main one. You do have to have the power on to be able to do the programming, so be very careful because this is fully energized at this point. So you want to make sure that you don't get close to the electrical parts that are in here. When you first come up, the screen will be blank. It's on right now. It'll be blank for energy savings. You can touch this home key. It'll activate the unit, bring it up to a basic display. Most likely, the only thing you guys will ever do is adjust the time clock settings. There's 2 things that basically control when these outlets come on. There's a time of day to enable and disable so that you're not running them at night to save energy. And then there's a temperature sensor, which is actually in another cabinet, and we'll show you that here in a few minutes. So it has to be enabled from the time clock, and it has to be cold outside. So if it's either warm or outside those time clock settings, then it would turn them off so that you're saving power during the night when you don't need it. It's designed to turn them on an hour before you guys start rolling buses so that you heat your blocks up. If you want to change the time, you would come into this top button that says menu. The top setting in there, it's going to be very hard to see. Are you getting that on the video?
Sure.
Good. The daylight out here, it's a good thing I know what order they're in because they're hard to see. But the top one says owner settings. The second one says installer settings. The installer settings are for me to set the thing up for you. There's nothing in there you guys will have to mess with. You would come into the owner settings. In there, second unit down, is time clock. You come into the time clock. Scroll down to where it says view and modify an event. The type of event is weekly. And then you have a day of the week. So you have to do this for all 7 days, which is why you could set it different for Saturdays and Sundays if you want to, or even during the week. You'll be able to go in and pick your day of the week. There's going to be an on time and an off time. The easiest thing that you're going to basically do then would be pick the one that you want. It's set. Now the system can understand astronomical time if it was running parking lot lights or something like that, which you're not using it for, but that's going to show up in here. You're basically going to want a time of day. So you'll put fixed time and then just enter in what time you want it. Hit next, next, next until it accepts that, and you've changed that time. Does that make sense? Because that's really probably the only programming you guys would ever do if you decide, you want to turn it off earlier or later, or a little on earlier or later. Your schedule changes. When you're all done, hit the home key. It'll pull it back up. That'll actually cause it to save the program. Okay, we'll pause again just to make sure, because that's really the programming that you guys will do. Makes sense? It's good. If you do get into that and you go, call that 800 number. They'll walk you through it. A couple things to know about the system. It does know daylight savings time, so it will roll with daylight savings time for you. It does have a backup system that runs in here, so if you lose power, it's still going to maintain the real-time clock. There is no battery, though, so you never have to do maintenance on the box. It actually uses a capacitor to hold that charge. That thing is sized in the point that it will keep that programming for 7 years with no power. Okay? I don't expect you to call me in 7 years going, hey Chuck, my program's lost, all right? We can't get the power on that quick. We probably got bigger problems, right? So basically that just means you never have to worry about it. It's going to know the time, it's going to keep its programming, it's going to run. Obviously, if you lose power, you don't have any emergency generators on the unit, so your block heaters would be off until your power comes back on. It is event driven. What do I mean by that? For that morning event, if the power is out at that time, okay, so let's say we've set that thing for something like 4:45 in the morning. If the power is out at 4:45, comes back on at 4:46, it is not going to turn the outlets on because the event passed. That makes sense? Okay. Same kind of thing at night. Whatever time you've got that program to turn them off, if the power's off at that time, obviously they're off. When your power comes back on, the unit's going to put it back in the condition it was in, which is outlets on. All of that, worst case, that's that one day. It'll be back in sync the next day as the time clocks work through. If you do come in the morning and the power was off and now I need to, get some heat out to my buses, you're going to want to come back in that same place, into the menu, into the owner settings, and the very top setting is overrides. Okay. Top setting in there are set levels. Right now you will see that all circuits are off because it's warm outside. You could scroll up to where it says all circuits, push the thing to the right, and we just turned every outlet on. So that would be the way you'd get your system on in the morning if you happen not to have power at the time that would have kicked. Knowing though you're an override, so when you hit home like I just did, it's going to go back to the actual status, which is off again. So you're probably going to have to leave that thing set on for the day, or until you at least get your engines warmed up and running. That makes sense? That's probably the most complicated piece of the system. You do have your circuit breakers in here, one per outlet. So if you do have, an outlet that's popped, that's where you would look to see your circuit breaker. The other panels look the same. The exact number of outlets changes a little bit. There are 4 relays in each one of these CAN modules. A couple things for how these things work. One of the main things for you guys to know, the relays in here are guaranteed a minimum of 1 million cycles. So that's more or less 1 million days of turning your blocks on and off. I'm not thinking we ever got to worry about these. The way that they get the life out of that, what wears a relay out is pitting on the contacts. Pitting on the contacts is caused by the arcing. So what Lutron's system does is it literally watches your sine wave as it goes. And when you say turn on, it watches for 0 voltage crossing and closes a relay. There's no arc because there's no voltage. When it says to open, it looks for the current, watches for 0 current and opens. Again, no current, no arc. Because there's never an arc, you don't pit the contacts, they last for 1 million. There are actually 2 relays. You'll hear these things going click, click. What they're doing is, quite literally, when you turn on, it watches for 0 volts, closes a relay, watches for 0 currents, closes another relay in parallel. One of the reasons they do that is to be able to do a self-test. So while these things are on, and you'll hear these chatter once in a while, they're going to open a relay and make sure that this other relay is still holding. They'll close this one, open this one, making sure that that one opens, the other one held, so it's a self-test. So you may be out here and hear them chatter and go, why are my things turning on and off? They're really not. It's doing a self-test. It does the same kind of back off when you go off then. It watches for the 0 current, opens one, watches for 0 voltage, opens the second one. So you've got redundancy built in, you've got 0 pitting capabilities built in.